Hi, Editing Matt here. You may have noticed that this is a particularly long video. This might be the longest highlight that we've ever done. And I'm just here to remind you that I respect your time and understand that not everyone has the time to sit here and watch a nerd talk about a headphone for an entire hour. So I'm here to just remind and encourage you. Hey, we got timestamps and we have chapters in the description. Please feel free to use those to skip ahead to the content that you actually want to watch. Of course, I would be very happy if you sat and watched the entire video. I think it's pretty good. But again, I understand that everyone has the time for that. So please feel free to use the time codes. Feel free to use the chapters in the description and get to the point of the video that you actually want to watch. This is actually maybe two videos in one, which was not my intent, but that's how it came out to be. The first portion of the video is the typical highlight and review of the Fidelio X3s, and the second half of the video is a breakdown of how we can change the sound and frequency of the headphones with some pad swaps. That's why it is the link that it is. It's basically two videos in one. So if that's interesting to you, cool. Watch the whole thing, have a good time. But again, it's a lot, so use the chapters, use the time codes, get to where you want to go, and thanks for stopping by regardless. And with that, it is time for headphone highlights. We are continuing with just kind of random cool stuff. No more... okay, I keep saying no more IEMs. We're probably going to have some other IEMs to talk about down the line, but that's not the focus anymore. We're no longer in a focused category. We're just kind of whatever we got that's fun and interesting that I haven't shown before. That's what we're doing now. Headphone cam when? Oh. Yeah, I thought about that. Having like a, I don't know, an overhead camera to kind of look down at the table while I'm fussing around with the headphones. I don't have the desk space for that. That's the shortest answer to that question. Why don't I have that yet? I don't have the desk space for it. But it's something that I will consider down the line when this kind of becomes a bigger thing. I don't know. Make it a channel point reward. Oh, 10,000 points or something. Have a headphone cam for 30 seconds. Interesting. Interesting. Oh, that hurt. Anyway, headphone highlights. We have something interesting today. What we have is a very large dynamic driver headphone of a line of headphones we have looked at before and talked about before and have loved. These are the Philips Fidelio X3s. You'll recall the Philips Ship 9500s that we love so much and we have talked about a lot, and the Philips 9600s, which we showed off a little bit, and then of course the Philips Fidelio X2s, which we have also shown off and talked about a lot and love. This is the Fidelio X3. So having that name convention, one would think this is a... I apologize for the sound of the mic. This is a step up from the Fidelio X2. This is like an upgrade to it. It's the new version of it. It's the next step in evolution of Philips giant dynamic driver headphones. So that's what we have here. The X3s. They look a lot different from the X2s. For a reminder, here's your comparison. Your X2s and your X3s. Quite a bit different in design. Quite a bit... I'm sorry, I'm like having to juggle this. Oh my god. There you go. Quite a bit different in design. How is that going to affect everything else? We'll find out, because as you remember, we really love the X2s, so it only makes sense that if you're going to talk about the Fidelio X3s, you're going to be doing a lot of comparisons against the Fidelio X2s. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing, so that's something to expect. There's a lot of comparisons we're going to be making to the X2s with these. Let me really quick get my notes up here. Is the... what? No, okay, we're fine. Sorry. I thought my desktop audio was blipping. Okay. Very interesting style, yes. So let's talk about the build a little bit. Very, very different build. And kind of not a wholly unique design and a wholly unique build. This isn't the only headphone that does this, but it's one of the few that I've seen that does. This right here, that is covering the entire body of the driver chassis, is a fabric. This is a soft fabric. It's like, I don't know, like a t-shirt fabric, almost like a cotton fabric. What this feels like is a lot what it kind of looks like. You look at this and you might think, some people might think, oh yeah, that's a much more sleek, much more modern, almost futuristic, like retro future design. Other people might look at this and say, it kind of looks like Amazon Echoes on either side of your head. And that's kind of how I see this. And that's a lot of what this reminds me of. Like that kind of same sort of weird, very soft fabric on the outside. We have not seen really much of this before. Fabric on the outside of a headphone. So that's interesting. The yoke here is definitely a metal. Probably a spring steel. But it's very nice. It has a very nice finish to it. It's very kind of matte finish, brush finish. And then the headband is just a very simple, straight bend in that metal to make the headband that is wrapped in a very fancy leather. So Philips is very proud of the leather that they use for this headphone. In fact, when you get the headphone, it comes with a pamphlet just about that leather. It is the Muirhead fine Scottish leather. Okay. I mean, if you really want to learn more about that, you could read on in the pamphlet all about how fancy this leather is and how exquisite and expensive or fine and masterfully cured and whatever leather it is. If you really care about that kind of thing, go ahead, look them up and learn for yourself why this leather is so important. I don't really know why, but there it is. Philips is very proud of it. So it's got this leather. Okay, great. The leather is nice. It feels really nice. It's very soft. It's very premium feeling. The leather is found on the very top of the headband. It's also found at the very top. Is it though? Yeah, it is. It's also found at the very top and the very bottom of the comfort strap here. So this is, again, like the Fidelio X2s, a suspension comfort strap that is controlled by elastics, as you can see. So no need to do any kind of adjustments on the headphone to get the size to fit for you. It's simply put it on your head and push down until it works. That being said, this particular suspension comfort strap has really high tolerance. A lot of tension. It springs back with a lot more force than I think it should. It doesn't bother me all that much, but many people have complained that you put this on and there's so much tension on the headband that it's actually kind of pushing the headphones up. And so they get this feeling and sensation that the cups around the ear are kind of pushing their ears upward. I don't really feel that when I wear these, but I can see why that might happen, because this is a very, very springy, strong, resisting elastic in here. But otherwise, it functions as intended. You have your left and right indicators, which are very, very subtle, which makes them a little difficult to see. Right there where my finger is the R, and then the L is on the opposite side. It's even difficult for the camera to find it. Let's see here. Come on, get in there. Yeah, L right there. That's really your only indication of which is the left side, which is the right side. And as you can see, it's fairly uniform. There's a slight tilt forward where the cable connects that kind of maybe will give you another indication of which way the headphone should be facing. But otherwise, on the outside, there's not a whole lot to tell you which way the headphone should be shaping. So it could be kind of a pain in the butt to just pick this up, not paying attention, and then, okay, which way do I put this thing on? But that's a little nitpicky. Moving on, the pads are very, very similar to what we had with the X2s. They're a very, very nice, very soft velour pad, and they're very, very, very much a memory retaining memory foam. So it really squishes down very well. I'm trying my best to show this to you. They squish down well, and it's very slow moving memory foam. See that? Very slow moving. They feel great. They feel nice. I'd say they're... Oh, that's hard to say. I've had my X2s a lot longer than I've had my X3s, so the pads on the X2s are a lot more worn in. So for my set, I feel like the X2s have a much softer pad than the X3s do, but I would say that's due to wear in. I would say probably out of the box, the X2s are probably a bit more firm because they are just a thicker pad overall than these. These are very, very similar, but they are a little different. In terms of the ear space, you got a good... Oh, you know what? It's pretty damn good. You got like a good 3-knuckle width all the way around. So plenty of space for the ear. I put this on, and it's not really touching... My ear isn't really touching much of the inside of the pad. So good, great. The pads are removable. They have a proprietary Phillips clipping system, and they do clip right back in there. I'll show you what this looks like on the inside. You got this... I'm doing a terrible job here. I'm so sorry. There you go. So they do have angled drivers, which is quite cool. And the clipping system to get the pads on and off is really one of the most simplest, easiest, and smartest methods of pad clipping that I've ever seen. It just is so easy to just kind of line it back up, push it together, click, and it's back, and you're good to go. Yeah, it's a proprietary clip, but I don't mind it because there are some major ear pad manufacturers that will make pads for these. In fact, that's something we're going to talk about later on in the highlight. Okay, so overall, the build is a more sleek and modern design. It has some fancy leather that they're very, very proud of, and the pads are pretty much the same, more or less. And the materials for the yoke in particular is very, very nice. I'd say the one problem with the construction would be this fabric. I think it's a cool idea. Heading off for the night, have a good one. Thank you, Sipix. Thanks for stopping by. Have yourself a good night. I like the idea, the concept of having a fabric cover on the chassis here. It's an interesting look. It's an interesting feel. However, I would be concerned of the longevity of this. In terms of robustness, this is a big step down from what we had with the X2s. I bring up the X2s, and that is some really exquisitely machined and engineered, super high quality, lovely metal pieces used for this chassis. I mean, that is admittedly a very industrial-like design. It's very like kind of Star Trek sort of retro future, I guess. But I think that this is a much more premium feel because of the materials and the quality of it than I do the fabric. Yeah, the fabric design does look more modern. Sure, it's a much more modern looking headphone. I'll consent to that. But I think this is a much better built headphone in terms of the construction here. This feels like it's going to last forever. It is just solid metal, solid built. The hinging system is magnificent. The yoke and everything about this is so precision built and wonderful. I would think this will last forever. I don't feel that way about this. This fabric, even just kind of brushing it with my fingers here, I feel like if I do that too much, the fabric will wear away. This feels like a fabric that if I left this headphone out in the sun too long, it would disintegrate. So I don't feel like, I don't have the confidence of longevity with the X3s that I do with the X2 HRs.
That being said, you shouldn't leave your headphones out in the sun anyway, so just make sure you take a bit better care of these than you probably would with other headphones, because this seems like a failing point to me. Besides that, I have one other gripe with the build on this, and that gripe is in the cable. The cable, this comes with two cables. It comes with a single-ended cable, single-ended 3.5mm cable. Let me show that to you really quick. There you go, simple 3.5mm. We've seen it before, no big deal, right? Come on, get in there. Focus, would you? There you go. Simple, 3.5mm. It also comes with a balance cable, which is great, lovely, great. I love that. It comes with an extra balance cable. Hot dang, that's a nice benefit. The balance cable is a 2.5mm though, which is odd. It's okay. It's still balanced, so you gotta appreciate that. They didn't have to do that for you. But why they decided to go with a 2.5mm is odd to me. And it means, at least for my setup, I don't really have hardly anything that accepts a 2.5mm balance. So I had to have a XLR adapter to make this work for me. So that's a little bit of an inconvenience, but I appreciate that it comes with two cables. What I don't appreciate is that this headphone, well, so first of all, before I play what I don't appreciate, let me also point out that it accepts a simple, not simple, it accepts a 3.5mm entry for both drivers. Okay, it's a 2-split, 2-entry, 3.5mm. We have seen this before, but there's a problem. I don't know why they did this. I don't even know what exactly is happening that it is working this way. But for some reason, Philips decided to make it. It's even hard for me to talk about because I don't even really know how to describe this. I own several very nice, very high quality dual entry 3.5mm cables. I have some really nice, expensive, lovely periopt cables and some even expensive, lovely, very unique Heart Audio cables. I have custom cables that fit headphones like this. None of my cables work on this headphone. None of them. For whatever reason, Philips decided that this headphone, this one headphone, has to have, I guess, reverse polarity on the connectors. Because the only way that I can listen to this headphone is with the cables that it comes with. This doesn't look like anything special. It's just a 3.5mm jack. That's all it is. But they have somehow, for some reason, switched around where the pull parts are, where the connectors are connecting in here, so that it requires some special BS cable to be able to use. I can't begin to tell you how frustrating that is. Because, like I said, I have 2 shelves of lovely custom boutique cables that work with headphones of this design flawlessly. Across the board, universally, headphones that take dual entry 3.5mm, no problem. I got the cables for that. And I got all these headphones that have that same termination and same entry point. None of those cables work on this. I plug this in, I put my fancy cables in, I put it into my amplifier, and all the audio is just coming out of the left channel. Only left channel, nothing's coming out of the right. I don't know why. It makes me so angry that they did that. It makes no sense. It's not like this is intended to be a wireless headphone that needs to have a microphone attached to it. The cables that they come with don't have microphones or anything. They're just regular freaking 3.5mm plug cables, but they have reverse polarity for some reason. Why? Why did you do that, Philips? It's so irritating, and it legitimately was a problem for me, because when I decided at the beginning of the week that, oh yeah, I forgot, well, I didn't forget, but oh yeah, I got the Fidelio X3s up there I haven't shown off yet. Let's pull those off the wall and talk about the Fidelio X3s. That'll be fun. I pull them out, I put it on my head, I plug in my fancy cables, I plug it in, and it's only coming out the left channel. What's going on? I think it's broken. I forgot that this stupid freaking headphone has to have whatever ridiculousness they're doing with this cable is going on. And that was a problem for me because I put this cable away. I forgot, because I've had these for about a year or so, and I forgot that they require that specific type of cable. So the cables they came with, because I didn't like them, I put them away in storage and forgot about them. So when I pulled these out to listen to them, and I remembered, oh crap, they're that stupid freaking cable issue, it took me over an hour to find these stupid cables, because I had them in storage because I don't like them. And I don't like them because they're ridiculously long. Look at this freaking ball of nastiness I have to deal with. And I have to deal with it because I don't have any other cable that works with this headphone. This is so dumb. It's so dumb. It's so unnecessary to me. I don't want this. This is dumb. And what's equally dumb is yeah, it's super cool that you gave me a balance cable as well, but the balance cable is exactly the same, the exact same length, the exact same materials. It's the same kind of cable that I don't like this. I don't want to listen to this. I don't want this dragging all over my floor or laying all over my desk. Look at this monstrosity. But I don't have a choice. I don't have a freaking choice, because that's how they designed the headphone. I have all these other cables that I cannot use with this headphone because of whatever they decided to do with it. It's so annoying, it drives me nuts. It is my biggest gripe about this headphone. The biggest one by far. I cannot use any standard 3.5mm dual entry cable. It has to be whatever the hell they're doing with this headphone cable. Dumb. Pointless. I don't get it. Truly cruel. It is. Diabolically evil? Yeah. Yeah, you know what? It is. It is diabolically evil. I hate it. I hate that so much. But let's move on. So there's your build. Comfort. It shouldn't come to much surprise. These are pretty comfortable. They are they lighter weight? You would think they'd be lighter weight. Let's find out. You know what? Not much. They weigh pretty similar. The X2s might weigh a tiny bit more, which is surprising because the X2s have a lot more metal construction in them than the X3s do. Interesting, but nevertheless. Yeah, so they're not super heavy off the bat. They're fine. Because of this suspension strap, this is a genuinely a very nice strap. Yes, it does have a lot of tension here, which can be a problem with the fit, but it's very comfortable. I don't really have much in terms of hot spots. I guess it is a little bit because there is so much pulling back down, or actually pulling up, I guess. I do get just a tiny bit of pressure right dead center of my head. Let's see if I can mimic that with the X2s. I have a feeling I cannot. No, the X2 headband is a lot more uniform. But again, that might be due just to wearing. I've had these a lot longer. Anyway, it's a good strap nonetheless. Yeah, it might be a little tough, but it's a good strap. And the pads are very nice. They got plenty of room for your ear size. lots of ear volume in here. They are an open back headphone. It might be a little hard to tell because of this fabric, but it is open back, similar to the X2. These are an open back headphone. These are also an open back headphone. They're not super duper open. They're not the most open headphone around. They're not like HD 800s, but you know, I can still hear everything. My voice sounds pretty clear, slightly muffled, but not much of a deal. So good breathable headphones. I really don't have much in terms of clamp force. The pads, like I said, because they're not as worn in, they're a little bit more firm, but it's not too bad. The longer you wear them, the warmer they're going to get and the softer they're going to get. So that should be pretty much a non-issue. So the clamp force in general is quite nice. It's fine. I'm confident that it's snug enough that it's not going to be falling off my head, while also it's not so tight it's not so tight of a clamp force that it's putting pressures on my temples or my jawline. So it's nice. Because of the velour pads, they do tend to get a little warm. That might be more like my body chemistry reacting to velour, I think, than maybe the headphone. Because velour pads in general have a tendency to kind of get warm on me. Your mileage may vary on that, but you know, to let you know, for me, the velour pads do kind of make my ears a little warm. But that's not for a while. Probably a good hour or two of listening before that starts to be noticeable. Wow. I've been wearing these backwards because it's so hard to freaking tell where your left and right channels are. Anyway, they're very nice. They feel very nice. And they feel pretty premium in the hand without feeling big and massive on your head. Because of that, I'm gonna say out the box like this, they're pretty darn comfortable. Oh my god, a raid explosion! May, what's up? Fidelio, hey, hi guys! Thank you so much. Thank you for the raid. Madman, what's up? You guys are in time for a headphone highlight. All y'all in here right now who have not been here before, I am Master Marslander. I'm a variety streamer. I'm also a headphone reviewer and highlighter and enthusiast, and I happen to be in my section of my video right now where I do just that. I am highlighting some headphones I've been wearing for a week. What if I like big, massive on my head? You'd like to have big, massive things on your head? Well, I got big, massive headphones I can show you. Yeah, welcome Raiders. Thank you so much. May, I don't have a shout out set up yet. I'm so sorry. Everyone, please go show May B3 some love. She's amazing. She plays some of the coolest stuff, and she's an absolute delight to watch. She's so nice and sweet. So please go show May some love. Yeah, I don't have the ISO set up yet. That's my bad, man. I'll set that up before next stream. Okay, so yeah, I'm so glad you guys are here. Thanks for stopping by. So yeah, the comfort's really, really good. They're very comfortable. They're very nice. They feel nice on the head. They don't feel huge, even though they are rather large headphones. In terms of our cloud comfort scale, that is the scale that we use to determine how comfortable is a headphone out of 1 to 10 clouds of comfort. I'm going to rate them fairly high. I'm going to say they're probably... I don't remember what we gave the Fidelio X2s. I think we rated those fairly high too. I'm going to give these a... Out of the box, the way they are, I'm going to say they're a 7.5, almost 8 clouds of comfort. Very comfortable, very lovely. It's great. I have no complaints with the comfort, other than, again, the velour could be a little warm. So, the sound. Now, yeah, I could talk about the sound with these like I do most headphones, but again, if we're going to be talking about the Fidelio X3s, it makes sense to compare them directly with the Fidelio X2s. So we know how the Fidelio X2s sound. We've talked about that before. So I'm not going to maybe go into as much detail about the general sound of this, More so, I'm going to compare this sound directly to the X2s so that you can make that comparison yourself and decide what you might want. But in general, it's a very wide sound signature. It's very wide, very spacious. There's a fair amount of soundstage. It has quite good imaging. The low end is there, it's punchy, but a little recessed. In fact, this tends to aim a bit more towards a brighter sound signature, which is interesting. This is supposed to be a successor to the Fidelio X2s. That makes sense if you look at the name, Fidelio X2s, Fidelio X3s. It must be a successor, therefore it must be just kind of an improvement from that, right? That is a logical conclusion. Well, instead of improving the X2s, they kind of went in an opposite direction of the X2s. And in doing that, I feel like they kind of lost some of what made the X2s so fun and enjoyable. And this has become a much brighter, more analytical headphone. Analytical it's not necessarily analytical. I wouldn't necessarily categorize this as an analytical headphone, but it's closer to that than the X2s were. The Philips Fidelio X2s are a bombastic, fun, enjoyable, warm, relaxing, smooth, crazy fun headphone with tons of soundstage and a lot of bass. This is not that. By comparison, I have written up here. These are fairly bass light. Yes, they have bass, and yes, some of that bass can be punchy, but it's mostly mid-range bass. You don't get a lot of deep low end, and there's almost no sub bass. So that kind of bass that hits you in the chest, you're not really getting here. It's very kind of a recessed, what's the word I'm trying to look for here? They look nice. Yes, they do look nice. They do have a very nice modern design to them. But yeah, the bass is nowhere near the kind of impactful bombasticness that you had with the X2s. So that's a bit disappointing. But let's keep looking at it. The vocal presence is actually pretty nice. The vocals are softer on the X3s than they are on the X2. The X2 has vocals a bit more forward, a bit more in your face, and a bit more intimate. Whereas with these, the vocals are kind of softened a little bit and pushed away. They sound a little bit further away from you, not as intimate. Though they do sound very clear. But yeah, they just kind of have a bit more space to them. And so they sound a bit softer, not quite as crisp. These are a brighter headphone for sure. The X2s are a very warm headphone. These are a very bright headphone. And that kind of gets to its detriment sometimes, because these are unfortunately very susceptible to sibilance, especially with the T's. Like a woman vocalist singing words that have T's in them it makes you go like that. The sibilance is pretty bad with T's. So you're gonna have to kind of consider that with your music. Do you have music that is gonna be fairly sibilant oriented for things that are gonna pick up on that? Oh, you might want to turn the volume down. Less dynamics. Yeah. The dynamics on the X2s are really great. Things hit loud and hit low, but they're always there. This is a lot more flattened. There's a lot less highs and lows, and a lot more kind of everything's a bit more narrowed, a bit more even. And that makes them sound a little bit more like an analytical sound, a little bit more like a neutral sound, like gearing that way. But it does kind of take away some of the fun dynamic plosiveness. No, I'm sorry, not plosiveness. That's the wrong word. Explosiveness that you got with the X2s. But yeah, they do have soundstage. They don't have the same soundstage that the X2s do. The X2s sound much larger than these do. Not just in the soundstage, but also because of the low end and the impactfulness of the low end. but it definitely does have a wider soundstage. These have a little bit narrower soundstage, and it might be because of that, well, not entirely, but partially, that the imaging in these actually sounds quite a bit better. Yeah, you can determine where pieces of music are coming from a little bit better with these. And with gaming too, I feel like I have a much better spatial awareness of where sound is coming from with these than I do with the X2s. The X2s already do a very good job at that, but I feel like these are a little bit more intimate, and that makes them just image a little bit better. What else do I have here? Yeah, the X2s have a much larger, bigger soundstage, yes. And the X2s do have a much fuller sound. And again, that has to do with everything sounding very wide and very warm and very smooth, and very impactful. So everything sounds large and huge and impressive. This sounds a lot more, again, erring towards an analytical sound signature, which is not necessarily a characteristic that the Fidelios, I think, are known for. So it's a bit odd to me that they made that decision to step away from what this is known and loved for, and instead focusing on something that is very different than what Fidelio is known for. They are a bit more detailed, though. Obviously, with all the bombasticness you're going to get with the X2s, you might suffer a little bit on detail. So you take some of that bombastic nature away, you're going to get some more detail. And you do. Not a whole lot, but the high mids and the treble range do have a bit more detail and nuance in them. The caveat, unfortunately, being, though, that because it's the high mids and the treble range, that's where that sibilance can come in. So yeah, you are getting more detail, but some of that detail might be extra sharp and kind of painful. So it's not an improved sound, I don't think. It's a different headphone. And that's a weird thing for Philips to do. If you're gonna have your next headphone be the Fidelio X2, it would make sense for it to follow that line. But for whatever reason, they decide not to do that. So yeah, it is a bit more of a analytical sounding signature, but I do not think that these have the performance nor the neutrality to be considered an analytical headphone. So I think they kind of missed the mark a little bit, which is unfortunate. So do I prefer the X2s over the X3s? I mean, kinda, yeah. I kinda still do. I think that the X2s have a certain characteristic that people love about them and will continue to love about them. And I think that the X3s take away that character. They take away that fun and inviting, warm, engulfing, enjoyable sound signature that these are known for, that, you know, the Ship 9500s, the Ship 9600s, and these are known for, and kind of turned it around in a weird way. And that's kind of a shame. That being said, though, it might be fixable. I have Dekoni swappable pads that might be able to help there. So we looked at these pads a little bit before when we first looked at the X2s, but I had forgotten that I actually also use these on my X3s. In fact, I had the choice leather, the Dekoni choice leather pads on these when I was first listening to them at the beginning of the week, and I was extremely confused because it did not sound the way I remember it sounding. It sounded like I was doing something wrong, like I had things not plugged in correctly or something. It just sounded weird and off. And so I went and I watched a couple other people's old reviews of these headphones, and I was surprised to find that the consensus that people were coming to for this headphone was completely opposite of what I was listening at the time. And then it occurred to me that I'm just a big fat idiot and didn't realize, oh, it's because I have the freaking Dekoni pads on these things instead of the pads that they come with. So this headphone is highly, highly susceptible to having different tuning depending on your pad swap. You swap the pads, it can definitely significantly change the way it sounds. So I have two choices here. There are, I think, maybe two more Dekoni pad variations to choose from for these headphones. Fortunately, it's the same pad. The Dekoni pad swap works the same for your Fidelio X2s and your Fidelio X3s. They're interchangeable, and that's great. But I have two. So I actually took the time to try the two that I have out and wrote down a little bit that breaks down how it changes the sound. So again, these are the pads that these come with. These velour memory foam pads. They're a nice soft velour, and they are very squishy and memory foamy, very slow moving memory foam, right? So let's look at the first pad. And this is the pad that I had on them when I first tried listening to them at the beginning of the week. These are the Dekoni Choice Leather pads. And they're quite a bit different. There you go. They're a very, very nice leather, and it is still memory foam, but it's a lot softer. I mean, it is absolutely like a hamburger bun. Like, it's so soft and squishy. A lot softer. Also, though, a lot more opaque, a lot more solid, so it does not breathe the way that the velour pads do. So it does significantly change the sound. With the Choice Leather pads, here's what I noted. Bass. Holy crap, do you get a absolute metric buttload more bass with the leather pads. So much bass. I have it in caps. Bass dash so much bass. You get just ridiculous amounts of low end when you put these on. It goes from a headphone that has very little, not very little, but slightly disappointing low end, recessed low end, and no sub bass to a headphone that has just a gargantuan metric butt ton of low end and bass. So that's a huge, huge change. Yes, all about that bass. Absolutely. Huge change. It completely changes the whole thing. Inferno! My dude! Welcome back. I haven't seen you in forever. Glad I made it for the headphone highlight. The Philips headphones have always intrigued me. Yes. I'm so happy to see you again, man. It's been a while. Yeah, no, so yeah, there you go. That alone should indicate to you the difference it can make. You're getting your bass back, almost to its detriment, if I'm being honest. Because the bass is so overwhelming, the bass is so huge with the leather, it actually has a tendency to kind of veil the rest of your sound signature. So it really does bloat everywhere. Everything gets veiled, your mid-range, your treble range, and everything in between. Bass becomes this big, fat, stinking cloud over your entire sound signature. And that can be something you probably don't want for most things. Particularly if what you're listening to is very, very complicated. If you're listening to like a full orchestra, a large ensemble, or like a big band type of music, it's to its detriment because there's so much bass that you miss everything else. It's very hard to distinguish. Game Doc is now following. Thank you, Game Doc. Thank you so much. Look how happy you made Sonic. He's dancing around. He's having a great good time. Thank you, man. I appreciate the follow. It veils everything. So it's not a good choice for things that have a lot going on. Okay? You want bass cannon, swamp Dekoni Elite sheepskin? Yes, that too. These are the choice suedes, not the sheepskins, but they still deliver crazy, crazy amounts of bass. However, yes, the bass is overwhelming. Yes, the bass is very veiling. But it does have there is at least one use case where it's very, very pleasant and very, very nice. I was listening to the soundtrack to, what is it called? We All Go to the Rapture. I think that's what it's called. It's a game. And the entire soundtrack is this really somber, really beautiful, like chamber choir music. and it's a very haunting soundtrack. It's very lovely. It's very morose and haunting. With these, it's significantly more haunting. It is chilling almost, and in a, to me, a good way. Those vocals of that chamber choir, because it's just them, it's just this choir. There's no other instruments, and just that choir alone has this resonance to it that is just lovely and velvety and truly haunting. It's awesome. So that's where the use case for these comes in. If your music is, a small ensemble or something that's very, very focused to one thing, this is probably going to add some very nice velveting texture to it, and make it just that much like deeper and growling, and I don't know, it adds this kind of richness to it. It's really, really nice. That was where these shined a lot. Everything else, though, not so much. Like listening to a full orchestra was a nightmare because the bass was so overwhelming. Oh yeah, and they do actually also widen the soundstage a little bit. So the soundstage, while wearing the choice leather pads, is a little bit closer to default X2s. So that's nice. Okay. How about these other ones? I also have the Dekoni Choice Suede pads. These might look a little bit similar to the pads that are already on the headphone, but I assure you they are not. These are not velour. These are suede. It's a very, if you know what suede is, you know what this feels like. It is so soft and silky feeling, and it is equally as kind of squishy and plush and pliable and lovely as the choice leathers. So instead of having like a very smooth leather, this has got this nice, super, super soft, velvety kind of fur-like feel to it. So these feel fantastic. I love suede pads in general, but these are lovely. So how did these change the sound? You still get more bass. So we're learning right off the bat. You swap the pads from the original pads, you are getting that bass that you are probably missing out on. However, the bass is a lot better controlled with these. A lot better. So you're getting a lot more bass, but you're also getting actual sub bass. At default, the X3s have no sub bass. None. I didn't hear anything on any of my songs that really hit really, really low and had a really deep bass extension into that sub bass range until I put these on. Once these were on, then yeah, I was finally getting some really nice, rich, very natural sounding sub bass. And the bass is so much cleaner with these than it is with the choice leather. So definitely an improvement in the low end. You're getting more impactful low end. You're getting a much larger sounding sound signature because that low end is more rich and vibrant and around you and impactful and deep without it completely bleeding and bloating out everywhere else where it really shouldn't be. So these do a much, much, much better job of controlling that bass and bringing a lot more of that classical kind of Fidelio X2 sound back in there. So you get a much fuller sound, you get a much warmer and smoother sound. So this actually quells the sibilance problem. You are getting a little bit of recession in the treble range, but you need it. You need it because the sibilance otherwise is just too much. So this takes control of that. It pushes all that down. It gets rid of the sibilance. Hallelujah. Your vocals are still very, very nice, just like they normally would without custom pads, but they're more rich and more vibrant. I would say I mentioned that the X3s have those vocals kind of pushed back. This brings them forward a little bit again. Closer to the X2s. So your vocals are a little bit more forward. They're a lot more clear, but they're also smoother. They're velvety. They're very, very clean, and they're very rich sounding. So it's lovely vocals. Sibilance be gone. Yeah, sibilance is gone. They have a much larger sound. you are losing a little bit of that extra detail in the mids and the highs, because it is recessing those really, really sharp, bright highs. So yeah, you are losing a little bit of that you would normally get with the X3s. But again, I don't feel like that's what the Fidelio series is about. I think that naming this the successor in the Fidelio line was a mistake. I think it should have just been its own headphone. But if you're going to call it Fidelio, fine. I'm going to have to compare it to other Fidelios, though. And I think that the Fidelio line was never meant to be a highly analytical, highly detailed headphone. And I think that while it's nice to have that detail, the sacrifices they made to get it were just too much. So this takes away some of that detail, but again, it brings back the fun factor. It brings back the enjoyment, the smoothness, the richness, the warmth, the coziness of the X2s. So I think it's obvious. My clear recommendation for the X3s, if you're gonna get the X3s and you don't like the way they sound normally, you miss the fun that came with the X2s, then I think that the Dekoni Choice suede pads are the way to fix it. And again, it's the easiest thing ever. You pop these off, you pop these bad boys back on, and now you got a freaking killer headphone. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. I do in general still think that I prefer the X2s over the X3s, and I think that the X2s actually sound a little bit better than the X3s with those Dekoni suede pads, if we're being totally honest here. I still think that they sound just a little bit more fun, but that's for you to decide. Only big bands in this house. So yeah, that's a Fidelio's X3. Very interesting. Some really stupid ideas put into it. But it's not an X2 Plus. It's a different headphone. And if you're looking for an X2 Plus, you need to make some changes. So be aware of that. The only other thing I could really say is they power fairly similarly. The X3s require just a tiny bit more power. They don't, A/B testing them, the X2s always sounded a little bit louder, so they're a little bit more efficient than the X3s. But yeah, that's it for that, I think. Yeah, I don't have anything. I could potentially try doing the other Dekoni pads with these, but I'm pretty content with what I have here. And again, saying that, if you want just a ridiculously bassy headphone that's just all the bass all day, maybe you do want the leather ones, Or if you primarily listen to chamber choirs, maybe you'll want the leather ones. But my recommendation is definitely the suede. Anyway, that's that. And that's your headphone highlight. Okay. Ba-bam.